This is a great question. So, like, how do we know that we're talking to who we're talking to? I think is kind of like the question behind this question. But the easiest and simplest answer is when you are tuning in or when that person steps forward, and they may step forward when you're not trying to tune in, right? But when you're trying to work on your project, or say you're trying to write a book or something like that, and suddenly you feel this presence, and someone from the other side steps forward, they will do everything to let you know who they are if it's important for you to know exactly who they are. So for example, there have been several people I've done readings for who intend to write books in this lifetime, and I've seen guides on the other side who have come through who were famous authors when they were alive, and each person was very surprised. They were like, I didn't know this person when they were alive. Why would they come forward for me? And every single time, the person on the other side would flash an image of themselves, or they would say, like, here's who I am. And they would show flashes of the things that they wrote, in my mind and in the mind of the person who was tuning in and starting to, like, write their book or do whatever else, even if they weren't intending to connect to the other side. And so for me, the way that I know is usually they just tell me, or they'll flash images, and then they'll flash images of the books or the movies they worked on or whatever is relevant. They might give me references to certain types of music, etc. And then usually when I Google the person after the reading, they look exactly how they showed. And so this depends also on that being on the other side, if they're showing visuals or if they're just saying. But the question behind your question is, how do we know we're talking to who we're talking to? Very simply, like, you just kind of have to trust it. You will get certain signs of validation. So again, visuals, references to things that they did on Earth, where you could Google it and validate it after you tune in and get that information first through tuning in. You could then go Google it afterward to see if you can have it validated, or sometimes you go ask someone like, hey, like, did this and this happen to this person when they were alive, if they knew them or whatever, and they might say, oh yeah, I'm aware of that, or yeah. And so that can give you the extra validation that you needed. And a lot of times it just that knowing and that trust just comes through a lot of practice. So I will say that. Also, like, if you're calling in or working with a guide who had a similar experience, they're gonna talk your ear off about it. Like, they're gonna come in and chit chat and try and help you in every single way they can. They might talk about things they wish they'd known about that experience, lessons that they learned. They'll talk to you and tell you alternative perspectives for your situation. So like, hey, you're thinking about it this way, but maybe try to think about it that way. Or they might give you information that's going on behind the scenes in the situation, where if you're thinking about it a certain way, they're like, hey, there's actually some other information you need to know. So they'll give you that. And in those cases, often what they're telling you will end up being validated later. Yeah, feel